this is one of the many reasons to think there is a dark spirit behind all of this. Yes. Because, and it goes back to the Mariavite diary. The Mariavite foundress was was being threatened by that voice in her head. Sister Faustina was being threatened by that voice in her head.
Well, for traditional Catholics, this past weekend was Low Sunday. For those who attend diocesan churches, many considered it Divine Mercy Sunday. To talk about that particular devotion are three special guests today joining me from across the world. First is Sebastian Malik and Nate Vaughan, who collectively run the website realdivinemercy.org, and Kirk Hansen, who for many years has run the Ascent of Mount Carmel YouTube and Twitter account. Gentlemen, thank you for being here on Church and State.
We appreciate the opportunity to be here.
It's our pleasure.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation today because, as you all know, this is a massive devotion in the mainstream church. In fact, I was just looking up some stuff before our conversation today, and I saw this posted by the Ordinary of the Archdiocese of San Diego, Bishop Corleone there. And he said, Blessed Divine Mercy Sunday, let us avail ourselves to the many graces offered today. Totally trusting in our Lord's mercy, as Jesus told St. Faustina, humanity will never find peace until it turns with trust to divine mercy. And he posted the I suppose you could say perhaps the infamous image of this devotion on his account there. Before getting into everything, because I know this is a topic that a lot of people take a great interest in, I think it's good to actually hear from you all about how you all, first of all, kind of came to work together on this and what your interest in this particular devotion actually is. Now, Kirk, you've been involved in this probably more than all of us. Maybe you can give your background and what you're doing there on your Twitter and YouTube channel.
My involvement in this actually goes back pretty far. It goes back to perhaps when I was 50 years old. I had been away from the church for a good 30 years. And then I had a spiritual experience that I couldn't explain. So I went to seek out answers. And after a little while, I found the book, Ascent of Mount Carmel by St. John of the Cross. And I realized that whatever experience I had was very minor and not anything I should take note of. And this is the first time I've really talked about it in public. And I only do so because of St. John's cautions. And at that point, I was like on fire for the Holy Spirit, so to speak. And I got involved in jail ministry. And I did that many years, probably about 7. And I started with 1 day a week, and I went to almost 3 days a week. I alternated every other week on one of these things. And it was a volunteer position. I did it in the evenings. And nonetheless, I got fired from the volunteer position because I was too Catholic. I dared to say that the Catholic Church was the one true faith. And I suddenly had more time on my hands. Like I said, I was doing this 2.5 days a week. And so I was around my father's death 12 years ago. And I wish he was here, and I'd be loved talking to him about these things. But I decided to start a YouTube channel based on St. John of the Cross. And I have a playlist of over 100 videos on Ascent of Mount Carmel.
And it's right here?
Yes, down there somewhere. But thank you for showing the screen. I really appreciate that. And as I went through the book, even before the channel, I realized every page practically jumped off at me saying, this is what St. John tells us to do. But Sister Faustina says, let's do something the total opposite. Mm-hmm. And that's when I had doubts about this. It's on the internet already. But I don't think anybody had done it in such an organized manner that the three of us have done it here. And so that's what really tipped me that I felt it was a duty to come forward and show people these problems. And so I started my playlist 10 years ago, perhaps, maybe only 8. somewhere in there. And I did an initial 8 videos, maybe on a playlist, and I became somewhat self-satisfied. And then I started talking to Nate on Twitter, and he very helpful, helping me with other stuff too, and suggestions. And then he had mentioned that he had been doing research on the same subject. And right before Divine Mercy Week, I call it, he had gotten it all together, questions and answers, and oh my goodness, I can use this stuff because I do this annually during the octave of Easter, discussing.
I've noticed that. I want to bring up just real quick, sorry to interrupt you, on your Twitter account. You will post a lot of the quotations from Sister Faustina, and you will bring a lot of light, shine a lot of light on the specifics of this devotion that I think many people just are not clear on or aren't familiar with, especially the history of it. And I appreciate that whenever you do that this time of year. So it was really sort of, it came to me, I said, we got to do a show on this. This is a perfect timing.
And Nick started giving me this information, and he introduced me to Sebastian. As we're all in different parts of the world, but electronically, that's not a big deal. And I realized they had insights. I had just juxtaposed Sister Faustina against church teaching. And this is a conflict, and her spiritual formation was suspect, and her spiritual direction. But these gentlemen, Sebastian in particular, really dug into the theology. I had not had any. You just showed a post of mine about the Chaplet of Divine Mercy and the problems with it. I didn't recognize the problems until Sebastian had suggested to me, how can we offer the divinity of God to God? It's not ours to offer. And Nate has dug so far into the background of this. I mean, when you talk about the background, he traced it to another country. And these gentlemen have taken this to new levels. Mm-hmm. And they've put together a website. I've contributed here and there, but this is really their brainchild, and they're to be lauded for this. And it's called realdivinemercy.org.
Yeah, I'll bring that up right now, actually, before I turn it over to both of you, Nate and Sebastian. So this looks like a fantastic website. I encourage everybody to go to it and learn more there. But I do want to continue the conversation on how, Sebastian and Nate, you took a great interest in this, and Kirk sort of explained how you came to work together. But I'll turn it over to you both. Sebastian, maybe you can go first, because I know you've had some history with this as well.
Yeah, my kind of background was I was born in the UK. I Polish parents, and I moved to Poland 24 years ago. And although I was aware of the devotion, I used to say the chaplet from time to time, but I wasn't like I say practicing it, on a daily. It wasn't part of my daily prayer life. But the time after Easter, I would say the chaplet and the novena, and kind of be involved in the Divine Mercy Sunday feast. And it wasn't until about when COVID came, and I kind of started going to the traditional Latin Mass, started to read in and around the subject. I came across, for a friend of mine, a Polish priest who doctor of theology, and he said to me that there seems to be problems with this devotion, and because I wasn't maybe emotionally attached as some people can be with this, I was kind of open to that, and started to read his articles, and I saw he had a lot of information going back to its history, and also the theology, which I kind of enjoyed, and because of obviously because you hear many people saying, oh well, yeah, the diary can be a bit strange, but there's nothing wrong with the the orthodoxy of the prayers, but actually there was, and I stopped saying it because I just felt that I can't, once I understood, I understood where the problems were, I just couldn't say the chaplet anymore. And so and thanks. And then I came across Kirk's channel, and because at that time I was actually reading the St. John of the Cross, the Ascent of Mount Carmel, and I did like a spiritual retreat on St. John of the Cross. It was so glaringly obvious that the contradiction between what was written by St. John and all the warnings that he was given, and how Faustina was kind of saying, all you need is mercy and you're saved. It was like, the Protestants would say salvation through faith alone. This was salvation by mercy alone. Type kind of understanding.
Sort of like the Francis era. I mean, he would say that all the time: mercy, mercy, mercy.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, came across Kurt's channel, then Nate through writing to each other on Twitter, and then it just kind of all connected together. So that's how we started this. And because I'm here in Poland, I was able to get to some of these sources in Polish, which are very difficult to get maybe for, let's say, English-speaking people abroad. And then I was sending it to Nate, and we were translating it. And on our website, you'll find a lot of stuff also, sources, articles that they're in the original language in Polish as well.
Yeah, I see there's a book on the website too. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And when Nate comes back on, there's your camera. It's back on. Nate, tell us about yourself, your interest in this topic, and some of the work you've done so far.
Oh, sure. Myself, yeah. Well, Catholic. I live in Asia currently. It's a little bit different than other Americans. I got married to a local here. I'm really in far-flung Southeast Asia. But I started a family, and traditional Catholic, so kind of a hardliner, I suppose, meaning just that try to stay orthodox and not into a lot of innovations. So I didn't have a strong opinion about the divine mercy at all. And I still don't have a strong opinion about the devotion, except that the more research I've done, the more it would seem to be problematic, and come to certain conclusions. But it's really a scholarly project that we're up to, and I don't like the Novus Ordo in particular. To be completely honest, I don't like what it's done to the Catholic Church. And so to the extent that, try to lead people back 60 years to healthier times, less troubled times. So there's that objective. But really this has become a project. I just try to see it through because, well, to be honest, part of it is that I'm working under a priest named Father Peter Scott, and when he told me that it would be helpful to his parishioners, or that he could give them some literature if I came up with it, etc. So I thought it was had a benefit, and it's all about I would say ironically, or sort of it's not exactly ironic, but it seems ironic. This is a work of mercy, because we're instructing the ignorant. And it's also really fascinating because we're uncovering a lot of information that has been available, but hasn't been put together and conducted in a scholarly way in criticism. And I'm actually a little bit, I don't like the fact that this devotion has a lot of laudatory papers about it, a lot of laudatory opinions about it, when it hasn't been tested in a scholarly way. And I really don't mind, but you know that every devotion was really put under a bright light, like, you know, the Sacred Heart devotion, and you know, it really met a lot of criticism in its time. It overcame the criticism, and this was kind of the opposite. This was like put on like a Labor Day float and just sent down. Let's have a parade and let's do this. This is great. But you know, I really don't mind coming up with a critical study. And if people want to come around and then, you know, criticize our study, and then that's where we are. That's perfectly fine. I don't mind that. It's not a polemic. It's not about putting anything down, but it's about uncovering information in a scholarly way. Okay, so the reason I got into this is because when I read the article by Father Scott that said, what are we to think of the Divine Mercy devotion printed in Angelus, I came across it somehow, you know, just looking things up, just cruising around, looking at information. So I thought it was interesting. For some reason, I had a contact with him, just a very slight contact with him. I think I've been in touch with him about something very, very quickly. So I was able to be in touch and say, would you like to expand on your short article? And because I just had sort of the idea that there was a lot more to it, although I knew almost nothing about it. My only exposure to the Divine Mercy devotion, the chaplet, I found it, actually found it pretty pleasant. When I first converted, I saw on EWTN, they were saying the chaplet. I found it kind of pleasant. So, you know, I can understand that there's some positive feelings attached to it.
Right.
But I just don't mind. I just don't mind whatever the truth is. And if it came up that that this was, you know, really beyond any reasonable criticism, then there's no reason I have other things in my life to do.
Right.
No reason to pursue.
Well, that's great. I appreciate everyone sharing that. I think that's important to understand people's histories. Myself, I have never really been drawn to this devotion really at all. I know it was common when I was growing up in the 90s. I had School Sisters of Notre Dame at the school I was attending. It was a Polish Catholic school, and as best I can recall, we had the images around, but it was never really pushed on me, so I just never really had a great devotion. But I do want to get into this now. Obviously, you know, we'll talk about who Sister Faustina is. This is the Divine Mercy website. If people want to go there, I'm sure they'll get, you know, the narrative that is, you know, promoted by those who favor this devotion. But I think probably a better place to start before jumping right into her, and I want to probably turn to you, Sebastian, is what is the history of Poland leading up to this? Because I think that's what you were telling me before the show, important to sort of understanding the context in which Sister Faustina existed and what the sort of spirituality even of Poland was at the time. I think maybe there's probably some connections even to why John Paul II himself loved and promoted this so much during his own time. So that's probably a good place to start, I think. So Sebastian, maybe you can lead us off on that.
Well, I'll try and keep it brief, but there's a lot to go through. Now, let's wind up ourselves back to end of the 18th century. So this is when in Poland we had our last monarch, Stanisław Poniatowski, and around this time, 1795 was when Poland was partitioned. And it was partitioned, divided up into three segments. On one side, you had Prussia, so Germany. On the other side, you had Russia, and then the bottom part was taken over by Austria-Hungary, and so Poland's independence was taken off the map for over 123 years. Came like I say, got its independence back in 1918 after the First World War, and you could say also after basically most of the monarchy in Europe had been dissolved, and during this time, there was a movement that was very prevalent in then Polish history called Romanticism, which was connected then to Polish Messianism. Now, just to kind of say, being Polish myself, I suppose I can be a little bit more, let's say, upfront about this, but because we have a tendency, or our Polish kind of way of doing things is like we like to blame other people for our own mishaps and the troubles that we've been, have caused. And so instead of saying mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa, as in, it's our fault, it's like we like going, well, it's the enemies, it's their fault, that what has happened in and around us, and because of this kind of mindset, which is obviously at the root, is pride, that we should always learn from our mistakes, be humble, and kind of not do this again. We tend to kind of excuse ourselves, and so this literary movement of the Romanticism, which was headed by known Polish writers like Adam Mickiewicz, who in fact this word of spark, where did it come from? That was present in Faustina's diary. She wrote that a spark would come from Poland and would be this kind of saving grace. Well, I'm not giving the exact quote now from the diary, but it's in that understanding. It was these prophetic words were not her words. She was basing it on the literary movement of and the words of Adam Mickiewicz, obviously changing it as well. So we can see the dots that are now connecting. So the Romanticism period was also an antidote to what was a big movement back in Europe back then, was the rationalism and an Enlightenment period coming from, let's say, France and Germany, and it was kind of seen as trying to stop that coming into Poland. However, the Polish Messianism, which was connected to this, is known as Poland would be this Christ of nations. It would be this nation that would come and save Europe and then humanity from the perils of what was happening during that time, and the suffering that obviously Christ went through during his passion. Poland was going through that same passion during the partition times. So that's how it was kind of, this movement was trying to link it to this religious, theological kind of understanding, which was not a Catholic understanding, because as we know, it's the Catholic Church is the one that's meant to be leading us. As an instrument through us, as an instrument to our salvation, not one nation, so to speak. God doesn't choose, so to speak, Poland, Germany, France. He doesn't distinguish in that way, and so this movement. Then I'm kind of moving fast forward to the end of the 19th century.
If I can interrupt, because it's an important point. Mickiewicz was part of an heretical cult that had been formally condemned by the Catholic Church. And to further, and maybe we're going to get to this part, his teachings are still taught in Polish public schools. And John Paul II was a particular was devoted to Mickiewicz's writing. And he, before he was a priest, he was in plays based on the writings of Mickiewicz. So that further, I don't want to say much more because I think you're getting to that in your chronology.
Yeah, they're very good points actually. Kirk did again on Twitter. I'm actually got that in front of me. He has given a great summary of that.
If I can add one more thing, so
yeah, sure.
I'm glad you were discussing this because coming from me, it could come as being, he doesn't like people from Poland. But I don't think anybody's ever come and said, you're being rude or against. Most, like Sebastian, a lot of people from Poland are saying, yeah, I was taught this nonsense in schools. But the reason I'm pushing in here is that a lot of countries have the same type of problem. And so we're not picking on Poland. In America, we have American exceptionalism. In fact, we had a heresy that was condemned specifically by Pope Leo XIII, Americanism, and he singled out a priest, Father Hecker, who is now up for canonization by the Novus Ordo Church.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to read that because Kirk brings this. He does a great summary here. So, in terms of what Polish Messianism is that it's an idea that Poland is the suffering Christ of nations, whose passion-like trials will redeem not only itself but the entire world. It appears repeatedly in Faustina's diary, and Poland is portrayed as specially chosen, uniquely loved by God, and the instrument through which divine mercy will reach humanity. And this is from her diary. This is a direct quote. This is Faustina saying in her visions, as I was praying for Poland, I heard these words: I bear a special love for Poland, and if she will be obedient to my will, I will exalt her in might and holiness. From her will come forth the spark that will prepare the world for my final coming. This is in diary 1732. And so, as I mentioned, that word spark is connected to Mickiewicz's writings, his poems, and it was something that, as Kirk rightly said, John Paul II was very heavily influenced by. And even when he came first time to Poland as Pope, actually, he I think there was something like over 30 quotes that he came up with from Mickiewicz and Słowański, which were, these romantic writers, that were deeply rooted into Polish Messianism. So instead of quoting St. Thomas Aquinas, these great saints, he's coming up with quotes from Mickiewicz and Słowański.
Mickiewicz was part of a condemned cult, and Słowański's, I think I just mispronounced it, his writings, although he personally wasn't condemned, his writings were condemned by the Preconciliar Church.
Now, what was the cult there, Kirk?
Again, this is something that Nate clued me into, and then we followed up on this. Eugene Vintrus first influenced these people. He was in France. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I guess it kind of all comes full circle when you get the big picture. This Eugene Vintrus is sort of the beginning of this, not necessarily Polish, in fact, he was French, but not necessarily nationalistic. What it was a cult. It was based on his visions, and what he was is sort of kind of a lost soul, not a particularly religious person, a Frenchman. Was it not?
Towiński, and I may be butchering his name, Sebastian. Towiński,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he had started a cult, and basically Mickiewicz became his mouthpiece because he was eloquent. He was good with words. That's what he did for a living. But Towiński was the heretic, and basically he invented Polish messianism and misgave it while he was in exile, as I recall. Let's see, he was
in France?
Yeah, was he in jail? As I recall.
Mickiewicz?
No, Towiński.
I'm not sure.
Okay. In any case, his cult was by Pope Gregory had been condemned. I included quotes from Pope Gregory on the condemnation.
This is Eugene Ventras. He was condemned.
No, that was Ventras, and then Towiński later was condemned as well.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean,
so this is steeped throughout every step.
Yeah, and at this point, it steps into Satanism, occultism. Outright.
One of the follower of Ventras, one of his disciples was this priest called Abbe Boulon, and he was later then he was excommunicated. Became a Satanist. And where's the connection? He was, as I mentioned to you, Polish priests and nuns were going to France at that time, and there was connection with the movement of Abbe Boulon and this group. Who
many of them were getting kicked out of Poland by the Russians because they didn't want them there. They were problems.
But I guess we didn't really explain. So basically, this Eugene Ventras is sort of the origin of this occult concept, and what it is that he simply was just living his life. He was a little bit down and out. His life was sort of falling apart. He had visions of Saint Michael, not unlike Joseph Smith, the Mormons, not unlike some other people, who come up with something pretty zany. He had Saint Michael came to him, and in particular gave him this concept, and the concept is it's called the work of the great mercy.
Divine mercy runs consistently 100% over 100 years by all cults.
Yeah, there's a clear, straightforward delineation, but from point to point. So the 4 points are this Eugene Ventras was the origin of it, and he came a whole cult that he got, some even priests, Catholic priests, because he wasn't just sort of preaching and kind of wasn't just charismatic. He not only had these visions that he might have gone into these sort of pseudo ecstasies, but at the same time, he was doing called prodigies, and they were a host. I don't know if it was consecrated, but if it was just he sort of consecrated and so called. But it became bloodstains. Somebody who had sleight of hand talent could do something like this, but it may have also been a satanic sort of illusion. So it became bloodstains. He's anything but Catholic though, and so. And then he had these teachings. So this group was sort of exposed by one of their followers. And when he wrote a pamphlet about it, this follower, and he said, these people are completely outrageous and very wicked. They were doing things, sodomy. And then there was also these sacrileges, these sort of satanic sacrileges. But they didn't think they were Satanists necessarily. They thought they were doing God's work, because he had this message of this great mercy, and in fact, this was a great movement of mercy. So-called. It was a movement that continued. This was something that was cooked up, probably in the pits of hell. That it was a pretty good idea that extended generationally. And
just to clarify, this was in the 1800s, and it basically was ensnaring clergy, lay people.
I'm trying to pin down exactly. 1839 may have been the year that he received this vision, and he was just a normal guy walking around, just going to his job, and then he had this vision, and then he became luminary, and he became, and even priests were seduced by him. He ended up being condemned. The Pope stepped in, and that's the eventually the hammer comes down. And then, but now now there's an Abbé Vaughan in between. He's a sort of interesting character, complex character, but he's an apostate priest who turned to Satanism for different sort of personal reasons. But then he also was in this group of Vintras. I think that when Vintras, I don't recall exactly what happened to him, but I think Vaughan more or less took over with this group, the sect. And he continued the work of the mercy, the work of great mercy, the Louvre de Misericordia.
Vintras was the one who was in jail. I mistakenly identified Toyansky.
Okay. Real quick, because I was looking at your
links to these Polish literary figures, these romantic literary figures. So there was a personal connection. We're trying to say there was not just this. It's not loose. There was that connection, but it comes back around. Mickiewicz is a larger than life figure in Poland. So it's really his writings, maybe more than a group that informed their mentality.
Let me bring up on the screen real quick, and sorry to interrupt here. This was just from one of your recent Twitter posts, Kirk, and Poland as the Christ of Nations. So we find this messianism in the writings of Sister Faustina, Diary 1732. Here's the quote. I heard the words, I bear a special love for Poland, and if she will be obedient to my will, I will exalt her in might and holiness. Diary 1038. My beloved native Poland, if you only knew how many sacrifices and prayers I offer to God for you, but be watchful and give glory to God who lifts you up and singles you out in a special way. And then 1188. When I see his anger, I throw myself trustingly into the abyss of his mercy, and I plunge all Poland in it. And then he cannot use his justice. My country, how much you cost me. So it seems that the backdrop of all of this, a lot of the writings, they're sort of permeating into her writings. And this is problematic because it's sort of drawing on secular and obviously condemned positions previous to the 1900s. Is that more or less correct in how you all are seeing this backdrop to the story?
Yes, and I think Sebastian already said that it's the Catholic Church who will bring glory and salvation to the world and Jesus Christ's word. It's not going to be a secular country. And this has been proven to be false since John Paul II thought this all applied to himself, as Sebastian was saying. I did a video called Polish Messiah. He believed he was the culmination of all this. He thought he was the spark from Poland that would ignite the world. But
now, is it my understanding he actually wanted to name Pope Stanislaw originally, but he went with John Paul after some encouragement? I've heard that somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not.
He called himself the Slavic Pope. Sorry. Again, basing it on from the stuff of Mickiewicz and Słowański. So especially Słowański.
He went to Poland shortly after, at the beginning of his pontificate, and basically was doing a victory lap. Now, I am the culmination. It is what Pope? This Pope who will do this.
No, I want to hit on one more topic before we maybe jump into Sister Faustina herself. And I think, Sebastian, you probably have some insights on the Mariavites and how that maybe played into this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they were a group that again, this was during the time of the partitions, so they were not officially, let's call it, registered with the Catholic Church because of the clandestine movements that were happening back then. So it was like these convents were set up secretly, so to speak, and it was a movement. It was a movement that basically, I think, I'll let Nate speak more about this simply because he's done more research on this. Nate, can I pass the baton?
Okay, sure.
To you.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. The Mariavites, it really was just a single nun who, again, received voices, locutions. So, just as a bit of a background, private revelation. So, in the church, in the type of mysticism, locutions are when you hear in your imagination a voice that is not your own thoughts. So, or it's when you hear an audible voice that you'd hear as if you're hearing. However, it's spiritual. So, in other words, it's not any material person speaking to you. So, there's two locutions. One is diabolical, and the other is authentically of heaven. The first, being diabolical, is a lot more common. It's a cheap imitation. The second is a lot less common. It has to have some very clear intentionality, some purpose behind it. But a lot of saints, let's say Saint Catherine of Siena, let's say a lot of our mystics have locutions. But then Kirk has a real background in understanding this because Saint John of the Cross and Saint Teresa, the Carmelites, were experts, and they really defined mystical theology and also the explanation. But they define the cautions and the necessity of caution and a whole textbook in discernment, which is not easy. So, oops, okay. Oh, sorry, my audio is going. My camera will shut off periodically. Sorry. Okay, so, all right. So that's background, and so this nun, she was a devout nun, Maria Kozlowska. There's no indications of, based on the biographies, well, there's one in particular we have of her, no indication that she was, less than virtuous or less than pious in her young life. She was a nun, like Sebastian was saying, it was informal because in Poland, you couldn't really organize so easily, being under occupation. And so she was a nun more or less in her own household. Then voices came to her and told her that there was something special about her, and that what she needed to do was purify the priesthood in Poland. And so what she had to do was visit this priest and that priest, and then it was pointed out. So what you have is voices impersonating or from an angel, from a heavenly being, saying, I have a very special mission for you, purification. And I will tell you exactly, this is not vague, I'm pointing out, so there's a real intelligence behind it. Mm-hmm. This person, that person, this priest, that priest. Go to them, and she felt uncomfortable going to a priest in confession, and then she had to say to them, I heard voices tell me that I should come to you and recruit you. And so she eventually did get, 20 priests or so, and it was a slow decline.
As she chose her priest who would lead the movement, Sister Faustina chose Father Sapaco. And he followed.
It echoes what happened with Faustina
and all the themes that she wrote about, the language.
So going back, but just going back quickly to tie it up with the previous chapter, we're talking about Eugene Vintras, then we're talking about Abbe Boulin. Vintras was a layman, and Boulin was a priest who apostatized then. So Abbe Boulin was speaking with, in person, was speaking with the Mariavite leaders. It was this Kozlowska, and then it was her right-hand man. What was his name? I can't. Yeah.
Kowalski, his name was.
Okay. John, Jan, okay.
John Kowalski, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jan Kowalski, yeah. Okay, so she really more or less he was the one who really stood out as her disciple, and she propped him up, and she made him the sort of the leader of the Mariavites behind her. It got to the point, fast forward a bit, it got to the point where now they still are around. They baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, and the Little Mother. They're real whacked out. They're on Pluto. Yeah, and so the little mother, it was this now, her affectionate, her name and her title. She's the new Eve, by the way. Well, so anyway, so it was at the time of Abbe Boulin. So this is the second generation of Vintras, it's called. So in his circle, so she and this Jan, I didn't catch the second name, sorry, the Polish. Kowalski.
Yeah.
Okay, so they traveled to France. They talked to Abbe Boulin. They studied with him. They picked up his doctrine. I imagine. I don't have a real strong documented source about that, but it's in a book written by a priest, by 10 books, and it talks about that history. I think it's credible. But they studied with him, and then they established the Mariavites. But in Poland, what appeared to happen was simply that she got priests coming to her more clandestinely, who were the ordinary parish priests, coming to her for training, for instruction, to hear her visions, to hear her lessons, her lectures. It's collected in a book called The Work of the Great Mercy. And so eventually it started.
But let's emphasize it: the work of great mercy.
The work of great mercy. Yeah, it's clear as a bell. So the temple is called the Temple of Love and Mercy. It's been a little while since I did the research. The Temple of Love and Mercy.
Did that? Excuse me, just real quick. Sorry. Did that then come from a locution again, or is it just her own personal views on?
This is the third iteration of the Oeuvre de Misericordia, the work of mercy.
Yeah.
So this is an idea. That was told in under the pretext of a divine revelation to this Vintras. Nobody buys that, and the Pope condemned him. Abbe Boulin was more a sort of a curiosity. He was sort of a character, but he taught he taught the Kozlowska, and he taught this chief Mariavite, and so that became foundational to their doctrine, along with her locutions, I would imagine, and she wrote down her locutions in this book.
I think when Vintras died, there was a power struggle for his group, and Vaughan emerged saying, "I am the chosen successor."
Yeah, and as a priest, yeah, he may have had an edge as a priest, but yeah, right. So, and I don't know how they were introduced, but anyway, so there's a clear connection. So. When they came back, it was all about the work of mercy. That was the foundation. That was the center of their doctrine, their teaching, and their everything. But it appeared to the priests of Poland that what they had was a sort of a sectarian group. It's not the right word, but it's sort of a splinter group in the sense that they had these priests coming without any approval, without the bishops, signing off, approving, coming to receive instruction from a nun. And also there was, so they ended up being, the pious people had caught on to this, but they were seductive to other people because it seemed these priests were really more pure, more wholesome.
Right.
They said that they don't gamble, they don't do this and that, whereas the other priests, or so they said, the people in the Mariavites, so they really thought they stood out as this purity, and maybe they did in a sense. But you know how this goes. At first, it looks great, polish it up, and then it falls all apart because, she is even implied that she was seducing them, etc. She had a hold on them, and it wasn't a sort of physical seduction, and she had a hold on them. And she was the power. She was in charge. But they were of that group, and then of the disciples, because the laity gravitated towards it. And by the time eventually Pope Pius X called them to Rome, they apologized, the priest, they said, we're not going back to her. He told them, she has you under her spell. This woman is, really, she's out of control. And they came back, but they put it to Poland. They fell right back in place in her group. And he had no choice but to excommunicate them all. And
Wow.
she ended up being the first woman excommunicated by the Catholic Church. She was excommunicated. So at that point, they were cast out, and they became schismatic. I guess that's what you say. But they didn't stop. They had 1 million people, their laity, or the parishioners. But they all became essentially schismatic, I guess, at that point. Now, the interesting thing is that this is where there's a very clear connection. So far, we've been running a line, and then we're saying the divine mercy may fit in. We have the concept of the divine mercy, which is not an overtly Catholic concept. The way it's portrayed here, the magnitude of mercy über alles, the magnitude of mercy as a particular thing and concept in isolation. It's not a Catholic. It's not in our books. It's not a Catholic concept theologically. So Ploczki, Poland is the center of the Mariavites at this point. We said that in about 1900, I guess there's an excommunication, something like that. 1908, maybe something like that. No, that was Pashendi. I don't know, but in early 1900s.
1906, I think.
Okay. Yeah, and then 1932, if I'm correct about that, Sister Faustina was there in Ploczki, Poland. So they'd already built up a magnificent sort of cathedral called the Temple of the Great Mercy, the Temple of Love and Mercy. It was very grand, it was very large. And it was
here, Nate, on the screen here. I believe this is it, yes?
Yeah.
That was 500 meters from
the convent, Faustina's convent.
In Ploczki.
And she was born, let's see here, this is the actual website itself, the Old Catholic Mariavite Church, separated from the Roman Church in 1906, and Sister Faustina, born 1905, so right around that same time. And now you're saying she was living within feet of the origins of this.
Yeah, and the incredible significance is that it was in Ploczki, Poland, she received her first messages, her communications, instructions concerning the divine mercy devotion.
That's incredible. Were her parents at all, or family? I guess maybe let's focus in on her then, and maybe drill in more specifically the likely connections here. Did she go to a convent that was under this persuasion, or she's living right there under this community's shadow almost?
Yeah, the presence of the Mariavites, as opposed to Catholics, in the city of Ploczki would necessarily have been very large, but I don't have the numbers, and I don't know. And we have certainly there would have been an awareness of the Mariavites. She may have been completely ignorant. We don't have any documentation of any connection.
So Nate, can you address then what seems to be some pretty clear overlaps? Because you have Sister Faustina living near this cathedral. She's born just 1 year before it is separated from the Catholic Church. What are the connections there, if any, between her and this Mariavite community and its message of mercy that had been being promoted really for the previous many years, many decades?
Yeah, we don't have a historical connection, meaning we don't have any documentation. I don't have any, pardon me, any consciousness. I don't have any real belief necessarily that she ever met anyone in the Mariavites necessarily. However, at the time, she was working in a bakery. That was her assignment in the Ploczki convent. So the chances of her meeting a Mariavite were actually very high. Whether she chatted with them about their beliefs is a different story. She informed, we have no idea. But, as a cloister nun, the likelihood of her going out to meet with people and really getting a good education in their ideas is not something that I really was thinking a lot about, the possibility. But I think there's really no way to avoid the conceptual similarity and the fact that that while she was in Płaczki, Poland, really with really just you know a next door neighbor to the Mariavites in the Temple of Love and Mercy, with all of their doctrines, she received this locution according to her diary, right there, in that place. This locution, the first instruction of the first devotion of the Divine Mercy devotion. Previously, she had been receiving just a constant parade of locutions and visits from our Lord Jesus, so said. And that dated back to her I say late teenage years, sort of young adulthood, but about 18 years older, if not a little bit younger. Previous to that, she had never had any locutions. There was a sudden onset of these constant locutions, which so that's a completely different different topic of study. But
well, I'll jump into that, I suppose, in a second here. We'll turn to her. But I think the last thing that maybe is worth mentioning is, Kirk, you were telling me you obtained the diary of Sister, let me see the name here, right?
Maria Kozłowska.
Yes, and would you see parallels between the two, and maybe make a connection there? It seems.
Well, we were looking for it, but we were using English search terms for months, at least 6 months, and then collectively we were looking at it. And for even longer, I think Sebastian Nate had been searching for it. But
oh my goodness!
Then we just did the search in Polish terms, and it was archive.org. And then we set about, Nate, I appreciate it, set about getting it translated. And just the hopefully this, my screen is not showing up, is it? I'm hoping it's not.
No.
So, because I'm going back to the tweets from yesterday.
Oh, I can bring it up real quick. Do you want me to say something after?
I'm going to go from one to the other. So it's, but just the day-to-day language, the spiritual language they use is overwhelming. We did 2 videos, one on chapter 1, one on chapter 2 of the Mariavite diary. And when we're off camera, we were talking about the Mariavite foundress. It wasn't a diary with daily entries like Faustina's, but it was a summary of all her so-called mystical experiences. And it kind of read like a diary, at least certainly the first 2 chapters. So it seemed fair game to take the quasi-diary and compare it to the actual diary, which was kind of disjointed anyways. Even supporters of Faustina admit it's disjointed, wasn't written in any chronological order. But beyond the mystical language that is identical, there are a lot of alarming parallels. Both write extensively how they're God's secretary. And they go on and on about God told me to write this or communicate that. Another parallel is that they're both ordered to find a new congregation. Modern apologists for the Divine Mercy devotion don't go there, but they probably don't want to go there because there's so much there that's contradictory about the new congregation. Among them are many false prophecies by Sister Faustina. We don't like to look at prophecy in a literal sense according to St. John of the Cross, but her the foreword to Sister Faustina's diary in the English translation lauds her for being a prophetess, and she continually made false prophecies. They're claiming they came true on a literal basis. Well, let's look at all the things that on a literal basis and see that they don't come true. There were actually, as I recall, 21 of them that were easy to identify. But in any case, they were both trying to start a new congregation. Had Faustina lived longer and been more charismatic, she did get some priests to flock to her, Father Sapaco, but she didn't really live that long. It probably would have gone the same direction as the Mariavites because the diaries are almost identical.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to say, identical, but there's so much identical information in them.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the tweet here, and you make the connection between here's Vintras, who we were talking about earlier, Sister Kozlovska, and Sister Faustina. And you mentioned in your tweet, and I'll put all this in the show notes if anyone's interested in hearing more, is that there's parallels between Kozlovska's diary and the diary of Sister Faustina, among them being the idea that, again, it's Polish not messianism as the chosen instrument of a coming global renewal, direct commands from Christ to found a new congregation, mercy is the last hope for a sinful world, anti-clerical undertones, and the claim that the existing church needed a new splendor, etc. I think that really, to me, connects the dots as someone who's still learning a bit about this. That is, it's pretty apparent as to where this originates from and kind of where Faustina sort of picks up the football.
And even the Mariavites didn't invent anti-clericalism, because that is a theme from Polish messianism. All these sects that preceded the Mariavites, they were all condemned, they all ignored it. And in fact, the Divine Mercy devotion followed suit. They were suppressed and they ignored it. Father Sapaka went on preaching it, and now he's up for sainthood, I believe, in the Novus Ordo Church. He was completely disobedient to his bishop on a number of issues. I interviewed Nate, one, we called him the gangster of mercy. And Nate documented these financial peculiarities and just how he was completely disobedient to his own bishop.
So real quick, whatever happened to this Temple of Mercy? I see it present day looks like this. Does this still belong to this Mariavite community? Have they reconciled with the Vatican now? Do people flock to this place?
I think Sebastian's been there, I believe, but let me interject before you start.
No, I haven't. I was planning to go there. I probably will go there once we hopefully do a documentary.
Let's plug our projects in a bit. But as I said, Faustina would have turned into the Mariavites, but the Mariavites have been condemned. So John Paul II loved this message of mercy that really isn't consistent with Catholic teaching or Scripture. But it would have maybe been fine with him to resurrect the Mariavites, but he couldn't do it. I mean, that was too big a lift. But he had Faustina over here saying the same thing, and that's a little bit easier, even though he had to hire a theologian, which Sebastian knows quite a bit about, to reconcile her diary with authentic teaching. But basically, the theologian gave himself over to a lot of falsehoods in doing so. I'm sorry, Sebastian.
No, I was going to mention that temple of love and mercy, the Mariavite one, John Paul II. So when he was a bishop of Krakow, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he visited that place while he was a bishop of Krakow. In that kind of spirit of Vatican II.
Wow.
So yeah, this ecumenism.
But they're still a sect, right? I mean, they're not.
Yeah, they're still outside of the Catholic Church. But Nate will know more than me. But there was an article written by one of their theologians, and they actually approve of Faustina, saying that Faustina continued the work of their foundress, Maria Kowalska. So they accept Faustina as a saint as well. This sect.
That's incredible.
They accept her as the next step in their what is it? Is an apocalyptic apocalyptic fruition of divine destiny.
It is my understanding, though, that they've lost a lot of steam because John Paul II came along and preached a similar message, and I believe they're not like they used to be.
No, the numbers have come down since their height back in those days. So where they had a following of close to maybe 1 million, I think officially now there's something around about 40,000-50,000 nationwide.
I know, Kirk, you put this on your Twitter account recently, and again, I just think this is, to me, as someone who's still learning about the subject, the obvious parallels here are hard to deny. And here's an entry from Sister Kozlovska's diary. She said, quote, "I saw divine justice aimed at punishing the world and mercy giving the perishing world as the last salvation." Sister Faustina says, "The last hope of salvation is to flee to my mercy." So, I mean, let's...
And even that, we're just talking about similarities and borrowing language. But we didn't, in that post, really dig down that the language itself, that's heretical. Sebastian will talk about, I don't think that's the exact quote from Faustina, where she repeats that the chaplet is going to be your last hope that's going to be set on the deathbeds of people everywhere, replacing extreme unction. That's pretty shocking.
Yeah, let's sort of get into some of who Faustina was, because I imagine folks who are watching this probably have an idea, but there might be some who tune in late and don't have all the details. So she was born in 1905. She's living under sort of the shadow of this community, this Polish Messianism.
No, not at all, not at all. No, sorry. No. Okay, we didn't kind of mention that. After she entered the convents, she was in every convent house. It's spread over Poland. This order spread all over Poland, and they had something like 14 houses.
And what order was she joining or seeking to join?
Well, it was a Marian order. It was
the Sisters of Mercy. Sisters
of Mercy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Nate has done some outstanding. I'm having trouble finding the words to say how much blown away I was using original source materials. But as I said at the introduction, it was stuff I hadn't thought of looking at. Nate and Sebastian have. Sister Faustina was regarded as a troublemaker in her convent, and she was transferred from convent, kind of like a pedophile priest would be. When they don't know what to do with them, they just keep transferring. And he, or at least they used to, and they did the same thing with her. Nate.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. Yeah, in her convent, in her life in the convent, in the diary itself, it's mostly, a lot of it is a drama that she has, by the fact that she's not being well accepted, and that there are people talking about her, and that they're persecuting her, and a lot of her crosses. Where that she really, will, make the kind of Christ-like cross that she carries is based on the fact that she was disagreeable, and
yesterday
abrasive with the other sisters. But
if I could, just one of the examples, and you brought that to my attention before I even noticed it. She goes to her superior and say, I have a vision that these two nuns are going to commit a mortal sin in the future, and I'm tattling on them.
This is here's something interesting. She was like the class monitor, like of the convent, and when Jesus would come to her and say so-called and tell her that this priest is in a terrible state. He's in mortal sin. He's in a terrible state. You have to go, and then they're going to commit a mortal sin. They're thinking of committing a mortal sin. So she had, a lot was happening psychologically with her, and I believe that it was based in, at least my concept is that it is based in real communications with a real entity, a real spirit. But just to go back to the earlier question of who is Sister Faustina, she was, and actually her psychology plays into it based on her childhood. So she was I think the third of 7 children, if I'm correct about that. Pardon me if the detail is not completely correct, because I haven't looked into it in a little while. Something like the third of 7, third of 8 children. She was a favored child. The family was rather poor. They were sort of farmers. So her father was hardworking. Her father was also, her mother seemed like a normal person. The father was sort of, had some religiosity, sort of had some heavy, I don't know what's exactly to put it, but a little obnoxious. He would wake up the family singing the Te Deum at the top of his lungs. every day and every morning, and he woke up quite early to farm. Children did not have to; they could have slept in, and their mother was asking him to allow them to sleep, and he said, "No, I put God first. That's why I wake up everybody with my loud singing, because I put God first." I mean, I'll criticize I'll criticize enough to say that putting God first would be putting charity to your children. That's one way to look at it, allowing them to get their rest. Okay, so you can pray at a lower volume. But you know that Faustina picked up on this apparently because a lot of her devotions were very overt, very sort of, you know, there was a lot of theatrical behavior on her part, even as a child. So she was considered pious, at least, yeah, I think so. The biographers, she was considered pious. The family was quite poor. She couldn't always go to church. She didn't always have a dress, etc. But they were good Catholics, and now she didn't necessarily have a vocation. That's sort of one of my ideas. There's no clear vocation. She said I felt a calling to a better life at a young age, about 7 years old. And I don't know quite what that means.
That's in her diary. A better life.
Yeah,
that's the way she phrased it. Actually.
Yeah, and that's the one. That's all she said about it. But then she got. She did want to, she had a strong desire to enter a convent, so I cannot say she had no vocation, but it's curious. She never talked to a priest or asked her parish priest about it. I had no one to talk to about these things. But she had a parish priest to talk to. I can't put those two things together. I'm not sure. So in other words, there's things that don't add up in a sort of logical fashion. And the fact is that her brother seems to think in his biography that she entered a convent because her father was ashamed of one time when she was chaperoning her sister, and her sister was out with a boy, and they came home late, like at midnight. The father was scandalized and just roaring at everybody and so angry. And that really shook her. And her brother seems to say that based on that, she really wanted to get into his good graces. She joined a convent, something like that. Now, there's different ways to look at it. And once she joined the convent, her first thought was, actually, this is really too strict. I don't necessarily want to have to pray all the time. We know that because it's in an interview with a woman that she had previously been a nanny for this woman, and the woman's very fond of her. Sebastian mentioned, and I think to me that, and I think I might agree, she had a real affinity with children, and this woman she was with really thought she should be a mother. That was her opinion, and that was really, and as she entered the convent, and she was confided in this woman, this is too strict for me. Now when you look it up at the shrines, they'll say no, she wanted to leave the convent because there wasn't enough prayer. It was too much work. It wasn't she wanted something that was more prayerful and that was more, there was less, less tasks. But that's a disconnect. But anyway.
I'd just like to add, before she entered the convent, she had this vision apparently of Jesus telling her that why haven't you yet come and joined me in those words, when she was being interviewed for the process of joining the convent, because back in those days you had to have a dowry payment to join a convent, and she didn't disclose these things to the Mother Superior, thinking that it was nothing important.
Huh.
It was very dramatic. She was living a life in the world. She had wanted to join a convent at age 17, age 18. Her parents forbid it. They said, we need you. Okay, we don't quite know her why she wanted to join a convent. It's not clear for her because her confessor never told us. I mean, we have other saints, Saint Gemma, and I don't know, a lot of biographies written by a priest who knew them personally at a young age, etc., or knew somebody, talked to people, and had clarity about this. But in her case, it's all based. It's quite quite we don't know, and so we have some speculations. But what we do know based on her diaries, and we take this as best we can as being literal truth. She had this vision, sudden vision. She was at a dance, and then here everything went dark, and then there's a spotlight on Jesus at the scourging, and or in his passion, and he says, "Why are you betraying me?" Essentially, I mean, he said, "Why do you keep putting me off?" Literally, that's what he said. Identical in fashion to Margaret Mary Alacoque of the Sacred Heart, and is it mimicking? I mean, it could be. I mean, quite possibly.
Yeah.
But then based on
Nate, I want to bring up on the screen here just for people who are watching. This is taken from your booklet, the Q&A on the Divine Mercy, and this is the cell in which she lived. This is the convent house of the Congregation for the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy, where Sister Faustina was formed. Now, so she bounced around, it seems, for several years then. I mean, first of all...
the entirety of her convent life, she was...
And how long was that? And who told her, first of all, to even start a diary? Was it her own accord? What was the reasoning for even doing that? Because St. Therese was directed by her superior to write down her experiences. Was Sister Faustina under a similar directive?
Yes and no. She was never directed to write her experiences to be collected as a document for the public. She was asked to write down her experiences to give directly to her confessor. This would have been the confessor, Father Michael Sapachko, as opposed to other confessors she had in the past. And keeping in mind, she was tossed from one to another convent and never stayed long. And that's a part of her biography that, is in her biography, is that she was here, she was there for maybe months in some cases, never longer than 2 years. I think that at the end of her life it was 2 years because she was so sick they couldn't move her anymore. Father Sapachko asked her to keep a diary because he didn't want to hear about it in confession. I think it was taking too long, or for whatever other reason, he decided, as her confessor, instead of telling me these locutions and these extraordinary things, write it down for me and hand me the diary, and I'll read about it. And just keep your confessions to an ordinary.
So this is Father Sapachko. Then,
and yet
he was very supportive of this mercy messaging that had been prominent at the time, essentially.
Yeah, he got really caught up in it, and we can see from his letter that he wrote to the Holy Office that he did not exercise due caution in what it took for him to accept it as authentic.
And just as the things that Sister Faustina wrote about her own experiences jumped off the page in light of the lens of St. John of the Cross, St. John of the Cross also wrote considerably a great deal of material about what spiritual directors do. And that just jumps off the page as to Father Sapachko doing the exact opposite.
Nothing. Just drop the ball. Yeah, just not doing it.
So did Father then...
She was let me just say, she was a victim of the most, and I'm not, this is not exaggeration, I truly believe this. She was the victim of the most incompetent spiritual director in Christendom, or that we know of.
Now, why do you say that?
What I just said. So,
what was the issue with Father Sapachko then?
Well, he gave her free rein. Number one, they struck a bargain before he was even her spiritual director that yes, you can continue on as you do before I even take you on. Every step of the way, there's one passage from St. John of the Cross who said you're not supposed to a spiritual director show the person coming to you that you really think there's anything to your visions. You should be dispassionate about them and never let them think you have an interest in what the visions are telling you. He was telling her, could you ask them what they think about this and this person? I'd like to know. And he's asking questions about personal life and trying to. This is divination. he was trying to use her indirectly as a one of these people with a crystal ball and tell me what I should be doing.
So, as Kirk mentioned earlier, identically to this Maria Kozlowska, who was given a vision, or well, then perhaps with the name of a priest, in the Kozlowska in her case. And Faustina was given a vision, apparently, of Father Sapachka before she had met him. And then he had been transferred to the convent that she was at in Vilnius at this point. We say she was in Plaszka in Vilnius, in Krakow. She was because she was everywhere. Okay, so at this point she's in Vilnius, and Sapachka was transferred. When she met him, she said, okay, now here, by the way, see what Kirk thinks of this, see what St. John of the Cross would think of this. I would love to see what St. Teresa of Avila would do with this nun in her convent, how long she would last. I would like to know. I can't say, but I would like to know. Now, Father Sapachko started off like an ordinary priest, more or less, because Sister Faustina came to him and said, by the way, this is just the opposite of what you do. She, in discernment, she said, I've seen you in a vision, and you're going to play a great part in this major spiritual revolution. And so he was shaken by this, and he tried to get out of the convent. He said, I'm feeling sick, and I need to leave this convent. I'm going to transfer. But they asked him about it, and eventually he sort of calmed. But then what did he do? He did the correct thing. He tested her on the visions. He gave her a test. It's not clear what he did, but he gave her a test, and she left to find a new confessor. You can only speculate. She left him. Okay. But that's the end of it. You got to toss at that point. I mean, here's a red flag. Thank you for the red flag. You're incompetent. Your visions are incompetent. I can't do anything with you. You left me when I tested you. I don't see how you could repair that in any way. But I'm not a priest, a confessor priest. But that to me is a serious indication of somebody who's on the wrong track. Yeah. And then when she came, but then Jesus came to her and said, no, go back to him. All right, fine. So then once she came back, and they reconciled in a certain way. And soon after that, I forbid her to speak of this in confession anymore. Instead of that, I gave her a diary to keep. I think he was overwhelmed possibly at that point.
So then she's keeping this diary and she's writing these things down. I want to focus now on basically what happens to that document and how the Vatican responds. And I know there's probably a lot of things we can go into, but I mean, maybe can either of you who knows the diary best, and I'm sure all you know it very well, what are the most glaring things that that contradict Catholic theology first, and then we'll move on to what eventually becomes of this document and how the Vatican ultimately says no to it and suppresses it. I don't know.
Sorry to jump in impulsively. Father Sapachko immediately had a concern with one of the statements, assertion of Jesus, so to speak, in the diary. Mercy is my greatest attribute. And maybe Sebastian could. Sebastian has a background in theology. So this was something Father Sapachko could not reconcile at first, but he came to some very thin justifications based on Thomas Aquinas.
Well, thanks to our collaboration with Father Peter Scott, he wrote three great papers for us. One of them, if not, I'm not sure if one of them is on our website, most definitely. So that's I encourage people to go on that website and read his writings on that. But the other thing is I'd like to kind of make clear is that to date the original diary has not been made public, as in
there's a lot of forensic problems with the diary itself.
Yeah. So first of all, it's not made public, whether in in e form, so in scans or anything like that. There's only
one page.
Maybe is it one page?
What is the document?
One legible page. Yeah.
What's the book
spread?
that's published then under the name The Diary? Is that a different altered version, or what do you? That's
It's a corrected version.
Okay, Sebastian.
It has a team of editors.
Supporters of the diary claim that there was some editing of punctuation and that sort of thing, perhaps grammar. We don't know because nobody is allowed to see it. They've only released a photocopy or a photo of just like a page out of all these hundreds of pages. And
yeah.
So
sorry.
I'm going to mention, I like to have fun with it. That of how much this is being edited, and Father Sapaco was carrying out pages that he didn't like before it was published. We don't know, and I would think even people who love the diary would love to see the original source material, the actual diary. They might cherish that, but it's kept under lock and key even from scholars. So on my Facebook page, certainly maybe my X page, at the top I have pinned a petition to the Sisters of Mercy. Please release the diary for scholarly research and let us see it. We want to see the diary. And I think even some people who love Sister Faustina have signed that petition. I think most of us who are more skeptical would like to see it and also sign it, but we could use more people signing it.
When was it changed then? 70s, I presume, under John Paul, when some theologians changed it in the Vatican, or what? How was it altered?
We don't know. We don't know when the what the change was, when the change happened, simply because we haven't got the original to compare it with. So what's important to know is that the diary the printed version that we have today is a copyright of an edition, a collaboration of editors that put that together, and the copyright belongs to the Marian. They're the owners of it. So the English version belongs to the Marian Fathers. This is why they've got a very vested interest in it. The ones in Stockbridge,
and emphasize so people didn't miss that it's published as a collaboration, copyrighted as a collaboration, not as Sister Faustina.
Right. Yeah. So their authorship is multiple authors, and it's not. We don't mean editors. We mean authors. So this is a copyright. It's creative work.
So the original, though, it did get into the hands of the Vatican, and this is. Can somebody give me the history of that in the 30s? And
Again, when the beatification process started back in the 60s.
Why don't you back up to the Holy Office? The Holy Office in the 50s, they received a translated copy of the diary, but not the full version. But they got it. It was first translated into French, and then from French into Italian.
Okay.
Again, to this date, we don't even know what those how these translations looked, because they haven't been ever published publicly. So when the supporters said that it was a bad translation, then like I say, we can't even compare the two, because we do know what was written in the original Polish by her own bishop and other bishops. And they recommended to the Holy Office that this be suppressed. People who were knowledgeable, knew Polish, read it and didn't like it. And the Holy Office just went along with the recommendation.
The claim is an important point, because there is a claim, and actually any the defender or promoter of the Divine Mercy devotion will say that it was a bad translation, that was the reason that the devotion was suppressed and banned in 1958. In 1959, it was repeated.
Cardinal Ottaviani, I think, right? Here's the quote here. Having examined the alleged visions and revelations of Sister Faustina, we decree the distribution of pictures and writings which present the devotion to Divine Mercy in the forms proposed by Sister Faustina should be forbidden. That's Cardinal Ottaviani at the time.
Right. Okay. So and I mean, just to go for a second, these bans, 1959 is the sort of the public sort of proclamation, because it's in the AAS, is the printed version of all of the decrees of the Catholic Church every year. So in 59, that's when they printed what they had decided in 1958, more or less, in a committee. And the committee had 5 points, and there was really a stronger, negative verdict, a stronger pronouncement in the negative. And those are interesting points.
Can you walk us through those, or what were some of the main issues there? I know the image sort of was
what
dubious.
One important, one important one is that the visions were investigated and found to be non-constant to supernaturalite, although it might be constant to non-supernaturalite, because we don't have the document itself to. Now, what is this exactly? It's the Latin that indicates the decision of the competent church authority, be it a bishop or be it the Holy Office. Initially, the bishop investigates and decides the authenticity of an apparition. So a good example that I'm personally fond of, Akita, Japan, where the bishop, after years of investigation, decided this is authentic, and the church accepted that. If the church would audit it again, they could come to a different decision in the CDF now, which then was the Holy Office. Okay, so the local bishop, the ordinary in Vilnius, the diocese where the visions occurred, was Jalbrzykowski, Archbishop Romuald Jalbrzykowski. He was completely against it from day one. Had a terrible taste when he heard about it. It gave him a terrible, just a very negative reaction. And then the more he learned about it, apparently he met her twice. Was never favorable, not even slightly. Okay, so that's an important point. But the verdict of the church and the Holy Office was not based on his opinion alone. It was based on his opinion, of course, heavily informed. It was based on all of the bishops of Poland who were sent a questionnaire. What do you think of the Divine Mercy devotion? And they provided a written response, and it was sent back to the Holy Office, and they reviewed it along with documentation. The version of the diary that they received was, I think, collected by the Palatine Fathers, I believe, who is an order. Now, as Sebastian says, it's translated into between two languages, but first was transcribed by one of the sisters in Faustina's community. And I don't know if it was the community that she founded herself, or if it was her initial community, pardon me. But anyways, one of the sisters typed it out, transcribed it, and apparently she made mistakes, typographical mistakes. And this is where does the claim originate that it was a bad translation? It originates initially, as far as we can trace back, Father Sapashko's private internal correspondence with his colleagues, people he communicated with about the Divine Mercy devotion. There was a small circuit of priests and some laity who were interested, mostly priests, very small, who were interested in the Divine Mercy devotion. They would reach out to bishops or try to do everything they could to promote the devotion. And Father Spachka visited Rome to try to get Divine Mercy Sunday on the books. He was really audacious in such a way that it's obvious that he forgot about. He was apparently a pretty good academic and a pretty good and an Orthodox priest. Something happened, and it's hard to pin down, or if he was loose. Before that, somehow maybe something about his theology did not seem to be in any way strange or liberal.
It needs to be noted, I think, that he was also having visions along with Sister Faustina.
One time, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
What was his visions? Were they similar, or what? That's
well. It was kind of like he said, when Jesus appeared and threatened me, I got scared.
See, this is one of the many reasons to think there is a dark spirit behind all of this, because, and it goes back to the Mariavite diary. The Mariavite foundress was was being threatened by that voice in her head. Sister Faustina was being threatened by that voice in her head. I am holding you personally responsible for this. Father Sapasco was being threatened by that voice in his head. This is not the way God talks to people in visions and threats. Visions typically bring about responses of greater love. There may be a holy fear, but not fear of personal accountability.
So I think, though, today there's, again, a lot of interest in this because especially John Paul, and again, this past weekend was Divine Mercy Sunday, and there's a lot of like alleged promises by fulfilling the requirements. Can someone address what those requirements are and probably, explain what the problems of this so-called requirement is? Because it seems to me that it grants like a new second baptism of sorts, and that's to me very atypical of any sort of just private devotion.
Yeah, it's normally so where did this actual phrase come from? The actually second baptism. It came from the I think the theological study that was done by and commissioned by a priest known as Father Ignacy Różycki, who was chosen by Karol Wojtyła, and this was done in the early 70s, and he was at first he himself said he was skeptical about the diary, but then was drawn into it.
He had heard, pardon me, but he had heard in official circles that it was hysteria that was the problem with Sister Faustina, and there was no authentic revelation. That's what he had heard from people cognizant of the case. Pardon me.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
and he was John Paul's official theologian.
Yeah. That's,
wow.
He was his mentor as well when John Paul II was a priest. So that's why he kind of handpicked him, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So
and that was disturbing. Besides the point we're talking about, that's a disturbing quote you just posted.
Yeah. Do you want to read that, Kurt?
Unfortunately, in the history of the church, awareness of God's mercy was lost, suggesting
that's outrageous.
Yeah.
To condemn the church for bad theology is just stupid. Sorry.
And he goes on to say there's been an overemphasis on divine justice understood juridically.
So he's criticizing all past saints, all past pontificates, going back to an unspecified era. That sounds very Protestant to me, like where they said, oh, yeah, well, the original church was really Christian, but then the Catholic Church came and distorted its doctrines. He's doing the exact same thing. This devotion is problematic.
That's a contradiction of, I think it's either Vatican I or Gregory. Actually, it's Gregory the 16th when he said the church can never lose. It's daily assisted by the Holy Spirit. So this idea that it needs to be regenerated, that's a complete aggiornamento talking point, right? That the church is somehow deficient, which it can't be.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
And this is I think if you look at the kind of where the crux of the issue lies, especially in Divine Mercy Sunday, and the promises given there. So saying, and I'll so I don't misquote here. Diary entry 699 and the extraordinary graces that are promised here. It says, "My daughter, tell the whole world about my inconceivable mercy. I desire that the Feast of Mercy be a refuge and shelter for all souls, and especially for poor sinners. I pour out the whole ocean of graces upon those souls who approach the front of my mercy. I want to grant a complete pardon to the souls that will go to confession and receive Holy Communion on the Feast of my mercy." Sorry, this was not the apologies. There was another.
Well, I saw this promoted by Chris Stefanik, and we're not really interested
Chris
in getting
Stefanik,
into fights, but he did lay this out, and I thought this was something worth bringing up. He says, the promise of Divine Mercy Sunday isn't small, it's not symbolic, it's not just another devotion, it's huge. Jesus promises the complete forgiveness of all sin and punishment, the kind of grace you'd expect from a plenary indulgence, and the requirements, ? Confession, Holy Communion, that's it. Go to confession and go to Mass this Divine Sunday. I'm telling you, that's it. So that's a pretty, I mean,
all these promises by Faustina were made without a plenary indulgence. This is something that they looked at after the fact and thought, no, this is a problem. So we're going to put a Band-Aid and invent a new plenary indulgence to harmonize it.
That's the official documents. Divine Mercy Sunday does not mention this. Yeah. It's unrelated to Faustina's revelations, according to the documentation.
So she never said that if you do this, it's a plenary indulgence. They added that on, like John Paul and others. They made that important. Like
this day is for the divine mercy of God. No mention of any private revelation whatsoever. It's just a great day to revere the mercy of God.
So and just go to confession
adding a plenary indulgence, which is all very official. Although it's controversial to overlap Lord's Sunday, that's problematic. And if I just make it into it, it's horribly offensive that they overshadow Easter. It should be torn out of all the books because it overshadows Easter. There's an appalling novena that begins on Good Friday, and there was no bishop in Poland who was willing to accept it because there was, this is according to a biographer. Faustina is a very strong supporter of hers, Polish lady, Eva Czastikowska, did very good academic research into it. It's very helpful. The bishops, almost all negative, or let's say skeptical. One was sort of friendly, and yet he was not foolish. And when you talk to Father Sapashko and the correspondence they have between them, he says, I could absolutely not accept your proposal of a novena that begins on Good Friday. He categorically rejected that premise. But he said, I like the idea of the mercy of God. But what you're proposing me, these details you're proposing to are just fanciful, unacceptable.
And this so-called feast falls within that octave of Easter.
That's right.
And this octave had been respected by the church for almost 2,000 years. And it's the biggest celebration in church history. And all of a sudden, we're praying a chaplet within the celebration about
getting started and revved up for Divine Mercy Sunday. Yeah, Good Friday is a great day to get revved up for Divine Mercy Sunday. It's an overthrow. It's a hostile.
Go ahead, Sebastian. I know you want to jump in.
This quote that you said, Stephen, from that Chris Stefanik. It kind of, I think the majority of people who practice this devotion, I think they're in that kind of camp, saying that it's enough that you receive Holy Communion on that day and go to, you're in a state of grace, as in like you've been to confession just before, and that's sufficient for you to receive for all your sins to be remitted and all punishment, including temporal, to be washed away. So I say you get three for the price of two sacramental graces on that day. You get the sacramental graces from baptism, Holy Communion, and confession. Why not? Because God is so merciful; He can do anything He wants. So it's just bizarre. It's just
so you get your baptism year after year after year.
That's right. So it's not just a second baptism; it's a third baptism, fourth baptism, fifth baptism. I mean, if you look at it in that way, it's like, what's the point of then working on yourself, as in working on being virtuous on your sins and stuff like that, when one day every single year on Mercy Sunday, everything's going to be wiped clean. It's going to be whiter than my polo neck. You go straight to heaven. you know, it's only the bad trads that go to purgatory. We go straight, you know, we go straight to heaven.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's no coincidence that this was introduced during a time of neo-universalism, where there's a reasonable hope that all men are saved, which would have been condemned as a heresy prior to the Second Vatican Council.
And that's John Paul II's Paschal Mystery Theology, which is another large scale topic that Sebastian knows quite a lot about. This was a new heresy that is not well known, Paschal Mystery, and it's essentially an idea of universal salvation.
Well, I've also
And
often
John
heard
Paul II extolled it. I mean, it was not subtle.
Yeah, I've heard it said that this replaces the Sacred Heart devotion, and that, you know, this is our love for God,
Absolutely.
and now it reverses it and just gives you an excuse to do whatever you want because God's going to forgive you no matter what. You know, infinite dignity.
Not just that. It's not about loving God. It's about God giving you something, and that's baby stuff.
There are
God giving you something
qualifiers
is baby
with
stuff.
secret.
Doing something for God is what big grown-ups do.
It
Getting
also
something-
undermines, I
getting-
think, the role of the Blessed Virgin Mary. This is another thing. And we know who doesn't like the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? In fact, in Fatima, there was this the Sister Lucia. She said that the two last remedies that will come from heaven will be the Rosary and the last was it the promise of the given on the last the first 5 Saturdays.
Yeah.
And in regards to the Blessed Mother, that Faustina's diary has a couple really troubling quotes that saying Jesus allegedly told her, "I give you first place among all the virgins." Well, where does that put the Blessed Mother? And then she said, and then she proclaimed, "I'm in more perfect union than with every other creature, including the Blessed Mother." This is blasphemy, or not blasphemy, heresy.
And it's also delusion. I mean, it's sort of grandiosity and self-delusion and highly immature, in my opinion. I don't think Faustina grew up past the age of 16, something like that. I don't think she was bad or terrible. I think she was just highly immature and easily deluded and swept up.
And badly directed, as Kirk said, by her spiritual directors.
But she must have tossed over so many good spiritual confessors on the way, because if she's just gonna, for one thing, she would not take she would not take testing. She would not take direction in that sense if it went against her self-certainties, that apparently from her interactions with the Pachka.
In one of the diary entries, didn't she say that she touched the Eucharist as well? It came to her.
It came into
herself. So she's like the first Eucharistic ordinary minister, or whatever they call him.
And she doesn't claim that it came to her tongue; it came to her hands.
Yeah.
Also, there's another diary entry. I wish I could be a priest. She is. These things are problems.
I think what's also problematic, and again, if everyone's watching still, thank you very much for being here. We're going on 2 hours. It's an epic show, and thank you very much to all of our guests, Kirk, Nate, and Sebastian. And in just a moment, we'll hand it over to you for last words, because I think there's so many things we want to promote as well on other side from what we're talking about right now. But one thing that is problematic, and this is the last sort of 2 topics we'll get into, is the image itself. And I'm going to lean on your expertise to tell me where this originated from, how this is an image that really is problematic, because the first thing I noticed when I sort of became familiar with this was that you don't see the feet and you don't see any wounds in our Lord's hands, and obviously you don't see the Sacred Heart, you just see the red and white. I don't know.
I'd like to jump in here, but I think the other gentleman would like to add after I make a quick statement. Yes, it is missing the wounds. And the irony here is that the Chaplet of Divine Mercy borrows very, very heavily from a more orthodox prayer, the Chaplet of the Holy Wounds. And yet the Holy Wounds are absent on the image. So
and she had this painted. Yes, this was in the...
Yeah.
Okay.
the fact that it's intended to depict Jesus coming out of the tomb after the resurrection. The wounds
let me just add one thing, because I do very much like the picture from Salvador Dali, the crucified Christ of St. John of the Cross, because it depicts an image of Christ that is similar to a sketch of St. John of the Cross. You posted it there. And that also does not show the wounds, but it certainly shows a suffering Christ and redeeming mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is a vision that came to Faustina directly and printed either as visual, and she really saw it in front of her, sort of like spun out of thin air. Maybe impressed on her imagination very clearly, but it could have been a real visual that she saw, and she directed the painting, and it was painted by the flatmate or the housemate. I should say they shared like a group house, like what do you call it? But and he happened to be a major mover in the local Freemason of Vilnius, the Freemasonry, the lodges of Vilnius, and a very dark one, but the left-hand path, or something about the left hand, which is a very sinister type of satanic designation of a lodge, but that has to do with the well-known satanic concept, the left-hand path. That's all documented, and we don't know how he ended up being in the same housing as Father Sapachko, although it was a church housing. Father Sapachko, there's one thing that I don't know to touch on. He may have been a Freemason. I say that with a lot of some speculation, because there's very strange pictures of him with his shirt unbuttoned like this. And it's not just when he's a young priest, but it's like this in an official photograph, and somebody's taking his picture. He makes an effort, apparently, unless he keeps his cigarettes or his watch in a coat pocket. So you never really know. But it may be a sign to others that he's, because that's the hidden hand, and that's a well-known emblem of Freemasonry. But that's an odd feature. And there's another priest, Father Andras, who does the exact same thing. And I think that there's this is a different chapter of this, but there's other pictures of bishops who are known to be, sort of troublesome, who I think are doing the same thing there. And that's documented by a Polish historian.
So did the Holy See then also denounce the images as well? And did they come to the similar conclusion that this is not something to be revered?
The painting has an interesting history because it was never given never officially allowed to be displayed. It was displayed by Father Sapachko in the absence of the bishop. He never got that official approval, which is required to display a novel image. So the bishop was quite cross with him when the bishop came back from his trip abroad, that you would put this up. Why did he put it up? Because that goes back to that vision. When Jesus came and threatened me, I got scared, and I looked for a place to put the image. So that threat came at a pivotal time, and it's highly suspicious. And then he got a phone call from a priest he knew, and said, "Oh, and by the way, can I put this image in your?"
It even looks a bit eerie. Like if you look at the head, you can kind of there's like a shade of like horns on it. On the top, if you see
that is odd. Yeah, it's odd. That could be a coincidence. It's odd. It's the shadows that look like horns.
What's even more troubling, though, than the image itself is Faustina's diary, where she discusses what the image can do. She says that graces will come from the image itself. Not, Catholics love images. They're all over our churches, but we don't believe that the image itself is of consequence. It's what the image represents. And the graces come from the saint or whoever who will intercede on our behalf, or Jesus himself. But to say that the graces will flow from the image, that's idolatry.
Well, is there an issue then? Because there is no heart, and I mean, to me, that was always very conspicuous about the absence of that. I mean, light, illumination, Illuminati, Lucifer. There's always various connections.
Oh, by the way,
theory,
great point. Look at the direction, and then look at the compass of the Freemasonry, and they do match exactly. Now, it could be a coincidence, but they do match exactly. The fact that a Freemason painted it, but then again, it was under the direction of Faustina, but
Plus,
it
it's
may be an
polished white.
indication.
So,
Again, this is a very important point. Yeah, the white and the red, and tying back to the messianism. If the Polish saw that in a new painting of Jesus, that will strike an immediate chord, and that will help get that enthusiasm to get it off the ground, for one thing. When they see that, because as we said, they have this internal fixation on the messianism.
He laid the original painter of that Divine Mercy image, Kazimierowski. He committed suicide soon after. Yeah,
I never knew that. Yeah. Now, one other thing about the hand here is the hand is just simply up and straight, all the fingers. When in fact, in classical sort of depictions of our Lord,
that's right. Yeah.
His fingers are altered. Now, there is significance to that. What is that again? I think it's something about the Holy Trinity or His ruling power or something, whereas this one is just plain straight up. Does anyone understand?
That is how Faustina saw it. No, I don't know, but she dictated it exactly to the painter. They had sessions together. So whatever you see is exactly what she saw. That's all I know.
It's to do with the Trinity.
Right.
That hand. This on this image. That's right.
And the other one is just straight.
Yeah. Can you see on that image? Can you see? So the right hand. Can you see it? Kind of. If you bring it in, it looks like a snake. The head of the snake, a serpent. Can you see? The right hand, not the right hand.
Right here.
Oh, I see a little bit. Yeah,
that one.
Yeah.
You never know. It's not as much as the.
Somebody mentioned that it looks like the head of a serpent.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
I never noticed that.
Yeah,
incredible.
That could be a coincidence. You never really know, because sometimes a lot of things can look like clouds can look at other things.
Sure.
But the Vatican's the Pope Paul VI hall in the Vatican looks identical to a serpent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the same. Paul VI hall.
Yeah.
Before we go, gentlemen, and again, pleasure discussing this with you all. I think we could easily do a round two if we have the time someday. Is the last aspect of this, I think, worth addressing is the chaplet itself, which is something that is practiced by folks, I think, many all the time. I don't know what is right or wrong about it. I have never, again, myself had any inclination towards this particular devotion. I know, Sebastian, you said at a certain point, I believe maybe you were praying this or you were familiar with it more. I mean, what can you tell me about the chaplet itself? I know Kirk put it up on his Twitter account here, so I'll bring this up on the screen in a second here.
Well, it's said on rosary beads, so it's like the rosary in terms of five groups of 10. So that's there you go. So I'm not going in. I'm not going to go into now that because there is even connection there to the chaplet of the Holy Wounds, and some have rightly pointed out that it could have been a plagiarism of this. That the Holy Wounds chaplet was written by a French nun, I think 15 years prior to this, early 20s.
And part of the divine liturgy of the Byzantine Catholic Church have the ejaculations that have mercy on us and on the whole world, as I recall.
Yeah. So the original actually chaplet to the Divine Mercy was approved by Pius X in 1860 something. So this is not something that was completely new. But where I mentioned to you the actual on the theology side. Now I'll try and keep it simple as best as I can. But in that prayer where it says, I offer up to you the body, the body, blood, soul, and divinity. Now the problem is offering up to God the Father the same divinity that the Son has is theologically speaking is impossible. As we know, Christ has two natures, both human and divine. So the reason why the reincarnation. So he took on body and the body and flesh that he sacrificed was his human nature, and this theological kind of thing was discussed by Polish theologians back in the 70s, and they said that it was just they couldn't match these things together. So again, the theologian chosen by John Paul II, he tried to justify this, but in the end, by him trying to justify it, he ended up falling into the Arian heresy. So
Wow.
and actually, because this is because, as we know in theology, you have to be very precise in the language. So you'll get supporters of the divine mercy by saying, yeah, but in the Council of Trent, there's that when we receive the communion, there is the body, blood, soul, and divinity in communion, and that's correct. But this is the key thing, that what we receive, but what is offered up are two different things here. So in Christ didn't offer up his divine nature. He offered up his human nature. That's why he took on like I say, flesh to do that, because as we know, he was the Word before that. The Word took on flesh and dwelt among us. And actually, the Professor Ludwig Ott goes into that, and he kind of gives a good explanation. And also in the Catechism of the Council of Trent, there is a good explanation. So it was always a problematic thing, and there was even talk about whether this word divinity was never part of the original chaplet, as in even in the diary, but was it later added on or not? Again, difficult to say because we've never seen the original diary.
Yeah, I know, Kirk, you put this on your own X account here. You said most of the prayers is orthodox because Faustina cobbled it together from other prayers, especially the Chaplet of the Holy Wounds. But the one thing you said that Faustina added was offering the divinity of God to God. As Sebastian just mentioned, we can offer the body and blood of Christ in the Mass, but we can't offer the divinity of God to God. It's not ours to give. It's just silly. I suggest you stay away from praying this chaplet.
And I do want to add something. I said I didn't. I think we all did. Nate, I'm not sure if you did, but prayed the Chaplet of Divine Mercy at some point in our earlier times. And one reason, it's shorter than a rosary. It's the lazy man's rosary. And so every time somebody's praying the chaplet, it's one less rosary being prayed.
It's great insight. Yeah, no wonder. Gosh, it makes you wonder. Yeah, diabolical. The devil hates Mary. He hates rosaries. So
this is anti-Fatima. I do like to point that out. That one of the big pictures is that this came a bit after Fatima. Fatima is extraordinary, and the miracle of the Son made it into a universal revelation of universal significance, and it is truly the last hope of humanity. That's why Our Lady came and told us, and it's all about penance and all about reparation and all about changing our life.
Yeah.
So this came out of the blue. It just really came. It's Christ and not Marian, which is unlike Lourdes, unlike Fatima, unlike Akita, unlike Our Lady of Good Success. Really, the succession of Marian messages, which are in a perfect continuity and speak, speak clearly. And then this comes along and it doesn't match, but it does match the Mariavites.
Yeah.
I'd
The
like
big
to add,
picture is pretty clear.
if I can add just one thing in historical context as well, is that during this time, like the 30s, there was a lot of visionaries were going along, and it was kind of getting up to a big crescendo that even then the Holy Office in 1937 came out with a decree saying, warning bishops to be aware, and that these a lot of false imitations of true devotions are taking place, and for the faithful to be, for them to look after their flock and make sure they don't fall into following these false imitations. And lo and behold, this divine mercy then come, is approved. So back then they really did give the warning signs, and I think that was after Faustina's death in 1938. Sopoćko didn't even talk about Faustina's visions for the first 4 or 5 years when he was going to the Vatican, when he was talking about this new understanding of mercy, because he knew that if he was going to connect it to the visions, and obviously the decree that was out there banning imitations, it would be very hard for him to continue. So it's only 4 or 5 years after that he even he connected it to Faustina's visions, which is strange.
Deception.
Yeah.
Great point of clarification in the history there. So Kirk, I know you've been active on this, especially this time of year, on your Twitter account, as well as your YouTube channel. And would you like to share anything about what you're working on lately, or give any final words as to what we're talking about today?
I invite people to come to my Facebook page, my page on X, and I have a smaller page on Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel, which has been going for 12 years and has over 800 videos. I am going to compile what I posted this last week during the octave of Easter. I'm going to have to edit it, obviously, but I'd like to put it into an electronic book. And maybe by the end of the summer. Every year we get more material on this, and I can't fit it into a week. There's a lot of stuff we missed. So I probably got about 33% more material than what I presented. So I'm going to put that in there. My final words are, if you're a traditional Catholic, it's time to speak up about this devotion. This devotion is the soft underbelly of the Novus Ordo Church. And if you're going to show people there's problems with the Novus Ordo Church, this devotion is the place to start, because it's so easy to prove it's wrong. And when Catholics of goodwill, who consider themselves conservative Catholics, see this is a problem, they're going to say, well, they lied to us about this. What else have they lied about?
Amen. Yep. That's a great question to ask. Nate, thanks for being here. You're obviously a wealth of knowledge. I'll bring up on the screen your and Sebastian's website, Real Divine Mercy. Tell us about the website. I know you have a booklet here, pushing back, or answering questions, common questions about this. What can we find on here? And are you working on anything new coming up?
At the moment, not exactly working on anything new. There's a potential book. If the booklet is 40 pages, the book might be 3 times longer than the booklet, with some additional information. But I think this will help to clarify. All I've done is prepared what just hasn't been prepared yet, which is a critical study of the Divine Mercy devotion. And by the way, it's not as if I set out to disprove the Divine Mercy devotion. It's not at all. To be honest, it took about 2 years of research before I decided that the diary probably was not authentic heavenly visions, because it was actually fairly convincing. It was it's very rhapsodic. It's very somewhat poetic, and she's an energetic writer, and she's intelligent. So a lot of things to put together, but I hope what I've done is like any academic presentation, is just to take the to clarify the historical points and the conceptual points, and come up, allow people to come up with what it is. It is a matter of just adding information. With information, we can make an informed decision. We can have an informed opinion. Without information, we can't have an informed opinion. And I don't really mind, except that people may get, good information on this topic. It's just about it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Please do look at the book. Anyone interested in the topic will find the presentation itself in the booklet.
And my book, I'll work with
It's
Nate
free.
to make sure that, well, that's a nice thing of yours too, that there won't be any overlap. There'll be, you can use them as bookends on your bookshelf.
Perfect. Sebastian, what else would you like to say today?
Well, I'm hoping to do this documentary on this whole thing, and I haven't given myself a timeline yet, because we just have to go through the funding stage, and I have to put together a team to do that. And this is not my everyday job. So as you know, you kind of have to balance certain things with real work and family and things like that. And so I hope to get something started this year, and maybe if things were to go well, to have it before Divine Mercy Sunday next year. So that would be a plan. I'd encourage all Catholics, including traditional Catholics, but people who want to kind of dive deep into it, to first, read the Baltimore Catechism or any other catechism that was written before the 60s. Also read, great works like the Ascent of Mount Carmel, so that the Carmelite spirituality, because there's some great authors, great saints, great doctors of the church that we can tap into, and where there's no controversy. And finally, in the words of Saint Bernadette, I'll say, I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm just here to inform.
And if you want more information, go to realdivinemercy.org. I greatly appreciate your efforts there, and a pleasant conversation with all of you today. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm very humbled by your willingness to come and chat about this, and to not only educate myself, but our viewers as well. And hopefully we can do this again when the film is good to go and when the books are published, and happy to have you all back anytime you like. And hopefully that can happen sooner rather than later. But thank you all for coming on today. Thank everybody for tuning in to this extended episode of Church and State here at Cox News. Thanks again, everybody. Take care, and God bless.